Did you know that Henry VIII used to eat tarts just like this to try and produce an heir? So I figured it's nearly Valentine's Day, and what better way to get me in the mood than to cook up some Tudor Viagra? So this time last year on Valentine's Day, I treated my wife to some medieval aphrodisiacs.
You are coming nowhere near my vulva with or without those nettle leaves. I can just assure you.
Why am I not coming near your vulva without the nettle leaves? This year she didn't want to come back, but I'm still fascinated by the foods that our ancestors thought would put them in the mood for love. And in my research, I stumbled upon a really interesting recipe from the good Huswife's Jewell in 1586. In 16th century parlance, a tart to get man or woman in the mood for love. So I'm going to look at some of the history around Valentine's Day and love foods. But first, it's time to make our tart. The recipe starts by telling us to take a quart of good wine, which is just under a litre of wine in modern measurements. So a strong start. Into a large saucepan it goes, along with 2 burdock roots that we're told to have scraped clean, which I couldn't find anywhere. So we're using dried burdock root from a shop that sold a lot of suspicious smelling herbal tea. To a pot which is now looking more like punch than a pie base, we're adding 2 good quinces, a well-pared potato root, which was just what they called sweet potato at the time, then add an ounce of dates. The recipe then tells us that when these have all been boiled until very tender, we need to put through a strainer, wine and all. The next step involves eggs, but I want to let the mix cool a bit so we don't have scrambled eggs and wine, which gives us just enough time for a quick history lesson. Let's start with a little Valentine's history. Valentine's Day traditions come from a mix of old stories, pagan festivals, and church influence. Ancient folklore said that birds chose their mates on this day, while the Romans celebrated Lupercalia, a wild festival that included a lover's lottery where people randomly paired up for the year. The early Christian church wasn't a fan of these wild celebrations, but they knew they couldn't just ban them. So in 1496, Pope Gelasius officially banned Lupercalia and replaced it with a holiday honouring Saint Valentine. The Lover's Lottery, it was changed to a Saint's Lottery, where people drew a saint's name and were supposed to live like them for a year. A spoiler, that didn't catch on. And here's the funny part, to this day, no one actually knows who Saint Valentine was. There are at least 3 different Valentines who were all known to be devout and celibate men. So if they knew that their legacy was chocolate, romance, and hanky-panky, I think they'd probably be rolling in their graves. Did I just say hanky-panky? Probably best we get back to the cooking now. Now that our wine mix is cooled and been blended and sieved, we need to add a few things. The recipe tells us to put in the yolks of 8 eggs. Easy enough. Well, mostly. The recipe then goes a bit left field. We're then told to add the brains of 3 or 4 sparrows. This enters the long list of disturbing ingredients that I've had to search for online. So setting the sparrow brains aside for a moment, in goes our egg yolks. We need to add into the mix a little rosewater, then to seethe or simmer them all with sugar, along with cinnamon, ginger, cloves, mace, and a little sweet butter, which is what they said for unsalted butter. And then our tart filling is finished. This tart, it's packed full of ingredients that were thought to increase your virility. And here's why. In the medieval period, people believed that pretty much everything in this world was made from 4 basic elements: fire, earth, water, and air. In the human body, these elements were linked to 4 fluids called humours. And by understanding these qualities, they believed that they could create meals that helped restore balance and improve well-being. This dish is full of humour balancing ingredients. Sweet potatoes were seen as good for your love life. Legend has it that they were brought to England because Catherine of Aragon missed the vegetable from her native Spain. And her husband, King Henry VIII, was said to have eaten large amounts of sweet potatoes, especially spiced sweet potato pies like this one. Burdock, a nice stiff root vegetable. People back then believed that stars influenced the nature of food. Since burdock was thought to be influenced by Venus, they thought it naturally boosted virility. Quince. Some historians believe that quince was thought to be the fruit that tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. So along with all apples, it has its connotations with temptation. Dates have been a well-known aphrodisiac for many centuries, particularly in Middle Eastern cultures. Then you've got rosewater, which is distilled from an iconic flower for love and passion throughout history. Even the sparrow brains were aphrodisiacs. Sparrows were a classic symbol of the ancient Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite, and also associated with the planet Venus, named after the Roman goddess of love. So it turns out that all you need to get you in the mood for love is sparrow brains. Though this is called a tart, like a lot of recipes of the period, it doesn't give any guidance around making a pastry case, particularly given that at this point in history, a lot of pie crusts weren't actually meant to be eaten. But I figure that if I'm going to get the full lusty effects of a lust tart, then I need to make some pastry. I'm placing 125 grams of cold cubed unsalted butter into a food processor, along with 250 grams of flour. I'm pulsing until the mixture looks like breadcrumbs, and then slowly adding cold water a little at a time until the dough comes together. Turn it out onto a floured surface, shape it into a ball, and put it into the fridge for 30 minutes. Once chilled, I'm rolling out the pastry to my desired size, lifting the dough into a pie tin and pressing it into the edges. I'm laying down a circle of baking paper over the dough, I'm adding baking beans, and blind baking it in the oven for 15 minutes. Remove it from the oven, choose the most ridiculous way possible to remove the beans. Well, actually, this kind of works. It's now time to pour in our tart mixture, which, let's face it, looks a bit uninspiring for something designed to get diners in the mood, so it's probably best to dust off my pastry cutter set to add a decorative flourish. But what to go for? This one looks like a crown, maybe fitting for a meal that Henry VIII enjoyed. Moustache, virility maybe, perhaps. But then I was reunited with my wife's worrying collection of penis cookie cutters. Hearts too, which feel a lot safer and fitting for a Valentine's Day. Oh, go on then, it's a lust tart after all. Into the oven it goes until the mixture is set. And just like that, you have a lust tart fit for Henry VIII. The only decision remaining is whether or not to cut a slice of penis or heart. Penis, heart, penis, heart, penis, heart. Oh, go on then, let's go for penis. Let's be ambitious. So before we did the tasting, I'm sorry to say that my main microphone wasn't plugged in. So you're gonna get the backup microphone. I hope you'll forgive me. I'm really curious about this one. When it was cooking, my kitchen just smelled of really syrupy wine, really sweetened wine, which is tasty. But also the burdock root smelled like I was in a Dutch cafe. So I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this one. Happy Valentine's Day. Ah, that's really tasty. I'm not sure if it's the sweet potato or the sugar, but it's taken this really rich and dense caramelly flavour. I'm actually so impressed by this that I've brought back in my wife to see if she'll give aphrodisiacs a second go.
Hello.
Are you up for this, or are you just humouring me?
It makes me laugh that you chose to eat the piece with the giant in the middle of it.
Penis, darling, penis. I mean, to be fair, it's your penis.
My penis?
They're all from your mould, they're not mine.
Hen parties, let's just put that, or should I say, what they call it in America?
Bachelorette.
Like, given how successful or unsuccessful last year's Valentine's was, can I ask for a third of that size of bite?
Do you not trust me?
No, not after last year. The flavour isn't bad, it tastes like Christmas.
Picture this, you're in a Tudor tavern, some guy just brought you a slice of sweet potato tart. Does it put you in the mood for love?
It depends if an outline of his willy is on it.
But I think this is more successful than last time I give you aphrodisiacs.
Well, I wouldn't say this has been an aphrodisiac, but it's been more palatable.
You heard it here first. And just like that, she's gone again. So I think we've learned that if you're looking for something to give your partner on Valentine's Day, they may want traditional chocolates and flowers. But if you go even more traditional, I think they're in for a treat.